Hi, my name is Dr. Simon Risigira Trilos, and this is of course LS500. I'm sorry. And what we're gonna do today in this video is talk about the reference service, and we'll do an introduction of the reference service. I have mentioned before in my prior video that in my opinion, reference service or the reference service, it's one of the most important functions of librarianship, and it's something that is dear to many librarians. Of course, not everyone likes to do reference services, and you can be a librarian and work in other departments, such as cataloging, for example. When you do cataloging or indexing or abstracting, you don't or acquisitions, you don't have to do reference. But in any case, I still believe that the reference and the reference service it is at the core of librarianship. I have also mentioned that I worked as a reference librarian for many years in academic libraries, and my last job as a reference librarian was in 2010, I think 2010 or 2009, in Tennessee at Lincoln Memorial University. And it was a great experience. I was working mostly with doctoral students from education that were doing their EDDs, and we had also students doing nursing. And one of the things that you have to do as a reference librarian is also show up for class. You are invited by a professor to their class, and you explain to the students how to do, for example, search electronic materials, search academic journals, and also, of course, how to use, for example, a citation style. In my case, it was APA. And also, of course, I work at the reference desk, and I work at during the night. I think my shift was from 6 to almost 11 p.m. or even till midnight, and I have plenty of students coming at my desk to ask me questions in regards to academic literature. Of course, if you're in a public library or if you're in a school library, you will also, if you are in that, if you're doing that job of reference, you will have your reference, your library will have a reference service, and you may be asked to work as a reference librarian. In some smaller libraries here in Western Pennsylvania, you see that they have one or two librarians at the most, and the reference librarian also is the one who does circulation and answers the phone. And you have to wear many hats, because in smaller institutions, well, you have to do a lot of stuff. Even you have to do some cataloging and talk to the patrons and help people and do reference too. So it becomes a pretty hectic job if you're working in a smaller public library. Normally, if you're working in larger libraries, larger public systems, or academic libraries, you will have other librarians to help you out. And if you're in a large academic environment, in a large university, you probably have to specialize in a subject area. So you'll be the health librarian, or the natural science librarian, or the social science librarian, because you become an expert on academic sources. But for many of us those of us who have worked in smaller libraries, we have to wear many hats, and we have to do reference, and then we have to do circulation, and we have to do acquisition, and we have to rearrange the books, the printed books, back in the shelves, etc., etc., etc. So the reference service, and that's why I think the reference service is at the core of librarianship. Okay. So let's go to the next slide. And please make sure you read information in your textbook. And with what I say here in my videos and what you read in your textbook and the required readings, you can have a pretty good idea of what we are going to explore or what we are exploring in this course, LS500. So, what is the mission of the reference service? Well, the mission is identify, retrieve, and evaluate information that is relevant to the user's need. That's the first mission that many reference services have in general. And the second is to help the user solve his or her information problem. I think this is very, very important, and it is the key. Okay, especially in today's informational environment. I think the situation now is, or the issue now, is that we have many sources of information. Okay, so we as librarians, we have to act in a way that it may differ from what we used to do in the past. In the past, for example, if you were an academic librarian, it was very hard to search for information because we didn't have electronic mediated information. We have printed journals, and printed journals were hard to search to find information that the scholars and the scientists were looking for. So the librarian had a major role in finding the information there. But now with electronic information, anybody can find information, even academic information or general information. They may use Google or they may use academic databases. So one of our main jobs in today's informational electronic environment is to identify, retrieve, but most importantly, evaluate information sources that are relevant for the user's needs. Okay, so the evaluation of information becomes, and this is my opinion, the evaluation of information, then it becomes the key function that we librarians will do. We're doing in the present and will do in the future. One word of warning: it does not mean, however, that we have to filter information to our patrons. No. That is not the meaning of evaluation. We don't filter any information to our patrons. We let them decide which information is relevant and pertinent to solve the information problem. But we as professionals may assess the information and communicate that assessment to the patron. Okay? So again, it's not a matter of filtering or censorship information. It is a matter of evaluating and assessing information and telling our client, our patron, that we as professionals think this is the best source of information. However, it is up to the patron to decide which information to use. And that's something that we have to have very clearly in our condition as a professional librarian. We have to let the patron decides which information is relevant, and it's the one that is going to solve the information problem. However, we can assess professionally the information. We have to understand two things. First, that we serve a diverse community with diverse informational problems. So we don't have a homogeneous community. We have a very diverse community. I also teach a course on services for diverse communities. So we as reference librarian, or if we work in the reference service, or as librarians, we have to understand that our patrons are diverse, not only in terms of ethnic or racial background, but in terms of gender identity, in terms of age, in terms of religious affiliation, social economic condition, education, and so and etc. 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 Big etc. there. We have a diverse community, and that it is everywhere, even in small towns such as Clarion, and of course it's even more predominant when you are working in a large city. And the library objective is to fill the information needs. So we have to serve the community to help them resolve the informational problem, and that it is very problematic. When we have a diverse community with diverse interests and with diverse informational problems, the role of the library becomes more complicated. However, we don't have to see this as a something bad. On the contrary, this is an opportunity to show to the community why it's so important to fund public and academic and school libraries. Why the profession of librarianship and the institution of the library becomes even today more important than in the past. If we go and we do a history of libraries, we will see that in the very old times, libraries were there for the few who were in power, for the few who were able to read and write. And libraries weren't there to help the community at large. Well, that changed completely since I would say since the late 19th century and of course in the 20th century. And that is especially true with American librarianship. American librarianship changed the way we treated our communities. Okay? And the library became an open institution for all. And that's what it is important. So every time I talk about the library and every time I teach this course, I become really emotional because the libraries are a great democratic institution. Okay, some of the library functions are, and of course there are more, and we will explore some more in this class, and in other class, everything has to do with librarianship in our program. So collections, we have to collect and we have to preserve, and of course, when we organize that collection, what we are doing is providing access to that information, okay? So we may add subject headings, we may add metadata, we do authority control, we put call numbers, we catalog, etc., etc., etc. Why? Because we have to organize information in order to provide better and more efficient access. Okay, so please keep that in mind. When we're doing cataloging or when we're doing indexing, for example, what we are trying to do is provide a more efficient access to the information. Okay, because if we don't do that, if we don't catalog or if we don't index, for example, the information gets lost. We may have a building full of very good information, but nobody can find, and we have to assign it. If it is a printed information resource, we have to assign a call number. So why? Because we have to locate the information. Okay, so the whole point of doing this technical work of organizing information is for providing better and more efficient access. Okay, and there are many ways that we can catalog and classify information. The point is that whatever methodology we use, the idea is that we can access and retrieve that information. If that information is printed, if it's a map, It may be a picture, or it may be electronic information, it may be music, it may be a video. It doesn't matter what format. The idea is that we organize information and we do a catalog, which is it is a representation of information. We do that. Why? Because we want to locate information. We want to access and we want to retrieve information. It doesn't matter the format. That's why we do what we do. So keep that in mind. Everything in librarianship, like any other science, but of course I'm a librarian and my expertise is in librarianship and information science. I can tell you that everything is related. Okay? So who are the best searchers of information? Well, those who do the technical work. Because once you catalog and you classify information and you organize information, you understand how you search for information. I, by the way, teach another course on online retrieval, and we teach all those things there, and we're going to talk about it in this class too. But everything is related, and you will see as you will go along the program, you will see how one piece fit the other piece. So don't see each course as a separate identity. No, we are working with information, and everything is related to each other. Everything is related. So think about that. In my classes, and I always tell this to my students, I like to teach the subject matter, but I also like you to provide the opportunity for more in-depth thinking. Okay. So service, of course, we talk a little bit about collections and organization of information, but we service too. Direct assistance to the community and to users to search, locate, and retrieve information. And this is only possible, again, this search, locate, and retrieve of information, if we have done cataloging, classification, indexing, assigning of a call number, authority control, etc., etc., etc. If we don't do that, it is impossible to search, locate, and retrieve. And that, again, it doesn't matter the format or the container. The format may be electronic or printed, and the container may be a newspaper, a journal, a map, a picture, whatever container it is. The reference service is central to the library function. That's what I believe in. You don't have to agree with me. You may have a different opinion. But in my opinion, I think this reference service is at the core of librarianship, especially after, like I said a few minutes ago, after the late 19th and 20th century, when librarianship became a profession of service. And service to all. Please take that into consideration, of service to all. This is a little bit of history. I'm not going to go into much detail. Please make sure you read in your textbook about the connection between the idea of universal education and public libraries. Okay. Because they were connected. We're talking about the library here in the US, how public and universal education was connected to the new library paradigm. Let's call it like that. And we have a milestone, of course, that is very important, and that's the Boston Public Library in 1854. We have assigned for us to read Samuel Green's 1876 on librarianship and on the reference services, and this is very important because it's what we call in scholarly communication a seminal paper. So please make sure that you read that seminal paper on on the reference service, even though it wasn't called like that. But today, of course, the reference service has grown to have a help desk, research service, online service, virtual service. We have many ways that today that we do reference. Not only face to face, we may use a telephone, we may use snail mail with the U.S. mail. We may use electronics reference. We may have a help desk. We may have online, etc., etc. So there are many ways that we do reference today in public and academic libraries too. Another giant of the profession, it's Melvin Dewey. And in 1885, he created the first reference librarian position at Columbia College, which became Columbia University, of course. And Dewey, and as I just said, is one of the giants of the profession. I think he also was the founder, or one of the founders, of the American Library Association. So American librarianship has a beautiful and very I think it is not I wouldn't say a beautiful and a very important history in terms of how it changed and it became what it is today, a public or a public institution of providing access to information sources to all. It wasn't like that always, but it has changed and it has developed, in my opinion, for the better. It is an inclusive institution. Some of the more traditional functions of the reference librarian are teach people how to use the library and its resources, answer readers' questions, aid readers in book selection, and promote library use in the community. And we still do. If you are a public librarian and if you're a reference librarian and you're working in a public library, you still do, of course, these traditional functions. But things have changed, and they have to change. And again, we have to embrace the change and see the change as an opportunity. Don't be afraid of changing. On the contrary, changing means that we have more opportunities to develop we the profession has more opportunities to develop, and we as professionals do too. So now we have technologies. And I was reading in some of your posting that you are fond of printed books. I am too. But it is a fact that now we have information in electronic format, which is a great advantage because it's cheaper and it's faster, and you can access it at any time. So we have technology. So that's a big change. And now we don't have to go physically to the library. Many of you who are not in Clarion, or most of you are not in Clarion, living in the town of Clarion, or not even in Pennsylvania. Still, you can access the collections that the university provides because it's mostly electronic. So you can read scholarly papers in electronic format. Okay, and that's a change, and we have to embrace that change. Then we didn't have that before, not because we didn't have disabilities. We always have disabilities, but we didn't care, the profession did not care about people with disability as we do today. Now, like I said, in our evolution as a profession, we understand that we have to provide the same level of service to all, to every human being, regardless of anything. We have to provide the same level of excellent service to all. Okay? Just as we have to do in education, and just as we have to do in health services too. At least it is my belief. That's how I teach my class. I don't make any distinction between my students. I try to give them my best, my own knowledge, because you have the textbook, and you have to read the textbook, and you have to read other papers. So I'm not repeating what is in the textbook, because that wouldn't do any good to you. I have to give you my own experience, and then you can construct your own information, and it becomes your own knowledge. So, and this is very important, because it is part of my teaching philosophy, or my education philosophy. I believe in a constructive approach to education. And that means that we have several sources of information. I'm only one, and we have other sources. You get all those sources together, combining those sources with your own experience, and that becomes your knowledge. And that's how we construct knowledge in this class, by combining several sources: the professors, textbooks, required readings, other students, your own values, morals, and way of thinking, your own worldview, and your own experience, and that becomes your knowledge. It becomes you. That's a constructive approach to learning, and my constructive approach of education. Okay? So we have that today. Then we have diversity. And here I had two: cultural, national background, but there are many other types of diversity too. As I said, gender identity, religious affiliation, social economic status, level of education. Well, there are many ways to understand and study diversity. Not only with because of the color of your skin, or the way you talk, or your ethnic background, or if you're a Latino, or if you're a Chinese. No. That's one way to see the world. But there are many other ways to see the world, and to see how diverse we are. So it is another change that we as humans today are recognizing that not everybody has to be like me or like us. That we are all different, and being different doesn't mean that we are out of this world. It means that we respect the differences, you know, and I embrace the differences. Imagine if we only had one type of food to eat. Let's say Mexican. We all have to eat tacos all the time, or American, and then we all have to eat hamburgers. Well, that would be horrible. We have to embrace diversity and be able to eat different things: Greek, Italian, French, Mexican, American, Canadian, whatever. That's part of the diversity. Well, the same with art, the same with writing, the same with painting, photography, music, because we are different. There is a diversity, a large diversity in human beings. So we embrace that diversity, and again, we have to serve that diversity with the same excellent level of service. Okay, again, this is my opinion. And another way to see this diversity is through demographics. You know, we don't have the same interests and the same needs. So in the library, we have reference sources geared towards children, for example, or young adults, or older people, because they need different information sources. And again, all of this becomes an opportunity for our profession to grow, and we as professionals to grow too. So don't see this as a limitation, or don't see this as something, oh, now this is going to bother me. On the contrary, see this as a great advantage. What do we do today? Well, we do the traditional functions that we saw before, but also we do instruction, we do assistance and instruction. We teach classes when you are a librarian, especially if you're in academic libraries. But in public libraries, this is also true. You have to teach people, because what you want is your patrons to become long learners for life, and you don't want them to be dependent on you. You want them to be independent searchers and finders of information. Just like the relationship between me and you. I'm the professor, but I don't want you to depend on me. I want you to be independent. Well, the same is true with librarians. We don't want our patrons to be dependent on us. We want to teach them skills so they can be learners for life. They can search for their own information. They can evaluate the information. They can access and retrieve information. That's what we do today. That's what we teach. Skills for them to be proficient searchers of information. We identify relevant and pertinent information. We identify, we assess, and we evaluate relevant and pertinent information. And of course, we provide actual and factual information. Okay? We never mislead anybody. We provide information, no disinformation or misinformation or propaganda. No. Our job is to provide information sources. We don't misinform, we don't disinform, or we don't provide propaganda. We provide information, and we let the patron decide which information is pertinent for the needs. Okay. Remember what I said before about censorship or filtering. We don't do that. We librarians consider our patrons full citizens, and as such, they have the right to know. Open and full disclosure, and they have the right to decide. And of course, it will be their responsibility what they do with that information. It is not our responsibility to censor the information. We leave that to other, not even the U.S. government, to other governments that censor information in many parts of the world. We librarians don't believe in that. We believe in citizenship. Don't ever forget that. There's an association for reference, and it's called RUSA, Reference and User Services Association. And please go to the website, go to LA, and read about that information. And they make a distinction between reference transaction and reference work. Okay, so please make sure you read in the book what a reference transaction is and what reference work is. Because when you do reference work, you don't only do reference transactions. You also do other types of work, such as you create information resources for your patrons. There are different reference styles. There's a more conservative, a moderate, and a liberal, and this is one way to see reference styles, and it depends how you approach the reference service. I myself am a liberal type of reference librarian. Some are more conservative and provide you minimum service and minimum information, and liberal provides you more service and more information. Which is right or which is wrong, uh, I cannot say. Okay, uh, it depends on your approach. I have my own opinions, but if you talk to other librarians, they may have a different opinion. So please make sure you review this in your textbook and make your own opinions too about the type of reference service that you would like to do. Some main types, of course, is reader's advisory, and this is you recommend sources and books and titles to your users or to your patrons. Ready reference, you have short factual answers to specific questions. How many people are there in the U.S.? How many immigrants are there? How many illegal immigrants are there, etc. And may provide those answers, factual answers. Of course, remember you have to assess your information source. Then there is research consulting, and this is you recommend searchers, queries, resources, pathway to sources, etc. And you see this if you work as a academic librarian or even a business or law librarian to a very specialized field. It's a research consultant, and you can work freelance too. There are subject specialists, and you will see this in large academic libraries and small too, where you see that librarians have each one has its own area of specialization. I'm a social science librarian, or I am a biology librarian, or geography, or whichever area of expertise you are, you'll have a better knowledge or a more complete knowledge of the sources on that area. That doesn't mean, of course, that you cannot serve other areas, but you will have one area of specialization. This is very, very important if you plan to go into academic librarianship. And in many universities, they will ask you for a second degree, a master's, or even a PhD in some area. Okay. Now we have another, reference services, and we have, and this is very important, and that's why I make so much emphasis, especially in this class, on citation, because we do a lot of bibliographic verification. We verify citations, we correct bibliographic records, we correct proper citation style, and we check URLs. That's something that we have to do as reference librarian. So in this class, I require APA 6th edition to be in a perfectly style. Every time you cite something, and let me say something about citations. And I think I already did, but it doesn't matter. Let me repeat myself, because this has to be very clear. Citations is not only to respect others people intellectual property, which is very important, and to give honor to whom that honor is deserved, because you have created information and knowledge. That's all important. But citations are also important because it is part of the methodology of science, because science, it's a process in which we create new knowledge based on knowledge that has been created prior to us, or to our new discovery. So we build upon prior knowledge. We build upon prior knowledge, and the only way to discover the prior knowledge is through the citation. So citation, actually, it's a product of a scholarly communication and of science. Okay, it's not a matter only of just citing whoever you have to cite. No, it is a matter of saying, okay, I am researching this, but this has been researched prior by such and such, such and such, and such and such. So you are basing your own research, your own discovery on prior knowledge. And the only way that you can identify that prior knowledge is through the citation. And in science, the formal channel of communication is the peer review journal. It's not the textbook, it's not any other source, it's the peer review journal. It may be electronic, it may be printed, but it is the peer review journal because the journal has some advantages over a book. That doesn't mean that you don't cite books. Yes, you can cite books, but the channel of communication is the peer review journal in science, in the natural science. Probably in humanities, maybe the book. In the social science, it's a combination of books and journals, but in the natural science, physics, chemistry, etc., it is biology, it is the peer review journal. And some of the advantages are, first, it's peer review, meaning that before anything is printed in that journal, it has been revised and reviewed by peers. Okay? Secondly, it is a serial, meaning that it is published every so often, and we know the periodicity. And that means that the information is updated all the time. So you have the most current research on journal articles. You don't have that in textbook because to write and to produce a textbook or a book takes longer, while a scientific article may be only 3, 4, 5, 6 pages, maybe 20 pages too, but it may be as short as 2 pages. Well, that took less time to write and publish than a book. Therefore, if you want to read the latest research, you read journal research. You read research published in journals. Okay. Again, it does not mean that one is more important than the other, that one is better than the other. No. It's a matter of a scholarly communication. Okay. Well, so we have to do that work. We do interlibrary loan or document delivery. For example, if you're searching for one of the articles that I posted in my required reading and you don't find it, well, you may ask for an interlibrary loan, and they will deliver the journal electronically to you. We do literacy programs, language, writing, and reading skills. In today's computer world, of course, we have to do outreach, marketing, market library service and collections, etc. And we, during this class, during this semester, we'll go into more detail. I'm doing like an overview here. Reference service, we have different models. We have the reference desk. Everybody knows it's a desk that is in a fixed location. We have roving reference, and you move around the library or even about the campus or even about the community. For example, we may have a roving librarian here in town, and that reference service may move from one store to another store, to the library, to the school, etc. We have a tier service, and it goes according to expertise. So you get to the first librarian, who is a generalist, and then you go to a second librarian who is more proficient, until you get to the specialized librarian. This is of course true in large institutions, in large academic libraries. If you have a research problem, an informational research problem, then it's better to do a reference by appointment, because you will need more time. You cannot stand in line expect for the librarian to get you the information in few minutes, or no, he needs time. So you do a reference appointment. Okay, when I work as a reference librarian, an academic reference, I used to have appointments. Okay, because I need a time with my client or with my student to help him or her solve the information problem. So we communicate by email. I try to do a reference interview by email, or he would come to my office. We would have a reference interview, and I would see the magnitude of the problem, and I said, well, we need to set up a time this week or tomorrow or later in the day or next week so we can work together to solve your information problem, because what you're looking for requires more time. So that's very important. Of course, we do service to remote users. We use mail, we use telephone. Now we use chat, social media, virtual reference. When we talk about social media, we talk about Facebook or Twitter or any other type of social media. We may use, in some places, we use regular email, regular mail, snail mail, or of course we use email. Then during the reference interview, which is at the center of the reference service, because if you don't do an interview, how can you know what information sources are you going to provide? You have to talk to your patron, to the client, to the student, to the citizen, to know what he or she is looking for, and that means that you have to interview that person, so you know how to help that person. And in this class, we're going to study about the reference interview. So we have a conversation, we have identification, we have clarifications, and we have limitations too. Some things about the future, and I think it has to do with everything that I have mentioned in today's lecture. Well, we have information readily available. We have too much information, and that may bring problems. We talk about technology. We talk about diversity. Information as a commodity, meaning that information, it's a commodity in the international market. Information has a price. And for example, academic databases are very, very expensive, and only few universities can have access to every electronic database, because they may cost thousands of dollars in subscription. And the same is true when that information is sold. And sold, of course, it's not the right word, because information is never sold, but when you try to market that information internationally, well, it becomes very expensive for poor countries to have access to scientific literature. So what does that mean? Well, it means that you cannot do science in poor countries, period. Because, as I said before, science is done upon prior science. Knowledge is built upon prior knowledge. And if you don't have access to what it's, the current state of science and knowledge, you cannot do any research. And that's it. Because it is too expensive to buy that access. Because you're not buying the information, you're buying the access. And another problem too that we have, another issue, is that the communities don't value the service that the libraries provide. And we are seeing this phenomenon everywhere. And that is why we have lack of funding of libraries, because they don't see the service. We the people tend to think that having internet access is enough. And yes, it solves many information problems, but it will never replace the function of a reference librarian, because in a reference librarian you have a trained professional to look for the best sources, and Google will never be able to do that, or any other search engine I don't want to pick on Google. Any other search engine will be able to do what a professional, what a well-trained professional can do for you. Okay, so these are some of the issues that we're going to explore this semester. I hope you enjoy the talk. I think it was a little bit long, but it had to be uh, in that regards. I'm going to open a DV so we can comment on this lecture. Thank you.